Stardate 0317.2022. We are Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast about new and classic Star Trek. I'm your reluctant captain, Mike Garcia. With me on the view screen is.
Bray Gossett for right now. Hopefully, some more people
Yes.
later.
Yeah, Clyde will be here soon. He's battling the Borg Queen, getting some tubules in his neck, and once he disconnects, he'll be here very shortly. So this week we are streaming the pod live on the YouTubeals, slingshotting around the sun, steering right into a temporal fissure to cover the third episode of Picard season 2. But before we dive into Picard, first we're going to dive into the uh, a hyperfield made of feelings, I guess, and review the season 4 finale of Star Trek Discovery titled Going Home. Mariah, do those two things I told Clyde to do.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can interact with us live if you are joining us that way in the chat. You can type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat if you have something that you want us to see, a question, a thought. And as we get into a specific segment, you can type in capital HF for your hot take, aka your hot freak, in the chat once we get to that part of the show, so we can check those out as well. You can also visit us at StarTrekPod.co to find links to all of the audio and video versions of this podcast.
All right, we're still waiting for Clyde, but let's go ahead and do this. Time to review Coming Home, the season 4 finale of Star Trek Discovery, written by Michelle Paradise, directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. Let's go ahead and do some hot freaks. Hot freaks! And if you're watching or listening to us for the first time, we don't do hot takes. We're a Star Trek podcast. We do hot motherfucking freaks. So if you are listening, drop your hot freaks about the season 4 finale of Disco in the live chat, and we'll get to those as well. Let me start. Can I start with my hot freak?
Let's do it.
Cool. Because I have a feeling you're going to be more positive, so I want to slide into that.
As Clyde's not in the waiting room, is he? I saw him in the chat, so I was.
I don't see him in a waiting room just yet. Yeah.
Cool.
So he will be here shortly. All right. I really enjoyed this episode. After it started to get going, which was about 30 minutes in, backhanded comment, I know. I still have or had the same issues I've been having with Disco for weeks with this episode. The intentions of the show and the intentions of the story, what they're trying to do is good and wonderful. The ambition of what they're trying to do, like theme wise, social commentary wise, character wise, is great and admirable and 100% Star Trek. Like, people's heads are in the right space behind this show, but it's just the execution for me. It's not bad, but it's not like super compelling. I don't find my heart in it. And I'm not sure if I'm just not like feeling these performances or what it is, but I'm admiring Discovery a lot more these days for its admirable intentions and less for its actual like storytelling or entertainment value. But that being said, it was like super cool to see Tilly's arc like reach a great peak in this ep. We started with her and at the end it was just inspiring to see that. And pretty much everything from the face-to-face encounter with species 10C, like towards the end after that 30-minute mark, until the end of the episode was pretty good. Like, it was really lovely, really inspiring. So there's something to be said for that. Like, that was good. I turned off the episode with a smile on my face once we got to the end. So, and I'm so damn happy Book is not dead, because David Ayala, his charisma, his charisma, like, it's just a gift to this show. He just, there's a reason they keep teaming him up with every character. It's just because
the chemistry is insane.
He can vibe with anybody. First it was like Stamets and Colburn and, what's his, Tarka. So good. Yeah. And here he's like super vibing with Reno, and that was so fun. So yeah, mixed bag, but mostly positive for me, especially the second half of the episode.
Yeah, I think I love this episode. There's definitely like laughs, crying. I thought like it delivered on a finale as far as like wrapping up the storyline in what felt like a pretty successful way. Like I felt like that chapter was closed. I wasn't disappointed. I thought the creature design was great of the 10C. There are a few things I think I agree with you, Mike, as far as like some execution things. There's like a few things I would have, I think, adjusted to help it just feel a little less clunky.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some things where that like it felt a little whiplashy at points. But I agree. I thought there was I just have to shout out like Martin Green when she watches books like
Yeah.
teleportation thing appear and then disappear and then
Yeah.
realize what that means was just like incredibly stunningly beautiful nuanced performance in that moment of like a captain who has to keep it together and is watching such a gut punch. So to me that was probably one of the highlights of the episode, as well as Jet Reno, always a highlight of the episode. I love that Tilly came back. I'm so glad we got to see our fun special guest star at the end, which also made me just like so excited. I'm a little sad I got spoiled on that appearance prior to
Me
watching the
too.
episode.
Spoilers everywhere, all day, all
Well,
over the
everyone
internet.
just sent it to me. Everyone texted it
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
before even 10 a.m. And I was just like, y'all, I have not watched it yet. I have to watch at lunch. Like, leave me alone. But yeah, I thought there were some really compelling performances. There's a few things I think would have helped the pacing of this episode feel more satisfactory. But I almost found everything after the 10C to be like a prologue to this season rather than like a traditional like final act.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I know it's hard because I feel like this show is written in a 5-act structure, like most traditional Trek was, and continues to be in that way. And sometimes I think I'm just like I'm craving a more linear arc. I find something really compelling about like a 3-act bite to it instead of having this like whiplashy moment in there. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a great finale. I'm excited for the next season. I love our cast so much. I think they do incredible things. And yeah, they're all creature design, hollows, all the things. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah. And before Clyde gets back and before we dive into the listeners' hot freaks, I'll do this, Mariah. You can join us at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. Not only do we have bonus episodes on our Patreon, but we have an awesome community of positive Star Trek fans in our Slack group. There's a number of channels in our Slack group where we discuss all things Trek all day, dropping the memes, dropping all kinds of stuff, talking about the books, talking about the shows, the movies, and one of the best things about our private Slack on the Patreon is the daily or nightly watch-alongs. We have You can watch Star Trek with a number of awesome fans all over the world, with these watch along or watch parties. I think everybody just watched Disco like right before the pod went live today, so that's cool. And
they're watching Picard tomorrow.
Watching Picard tomorrow, doing like an Enterprise rewatch as well, and then a random episode. So patreon.com/Star Trek Pod, just $2 a podcast episode to dive in there and meet so many cool people and just take part in the community and enjoy some Star Trek with some positive fans. Okay, so I want to see what the chat is saying about this episode. I have a feeling people are going to be crying still.
There was some tissue box mentions.
Yeah. Chupi says I am all emotional after that finale. She also says I did cry like 3 times.
Yeah, I like
so many tears.
The minute I agree, all of the tears, like the minute that book was like potentially gone, I said, and then they said there's an orb on the way. I said books in the orb was like what I said out loud because I was like, I don't think they'd get rid of him. But the thing that like honestly got me in the feels even more was when they had to say goodbye to each other for Book to go off and sort of serve his community service duty for
Right.
potentially causing a giant catastrophe.
He got off pretty easy, didn't he?
Yeah,
He
for
got off
sure.
pretty easy. But you're right about Sonequa's performance in that moment when his stream, they just lost his stream and they thought he was gone. That was amazing. A lot of times, especially in the later seasons of Discovery, I feel, and it's not a criticism. I feel sometimes Sonequa is a new Shatner. You know, she goes pretty big a lot, but here in that moment, like it was just a perfect balance of emotion, and it read so genuine. And then when Book popped back up with that scene with the 10C, it was just almost as emotional. And that was great. And that's what I respond to. Like Marge in the chat says, Mike, don't you like emotion? Because I was like complaining that I wasn't connecting to the show emotionally. But towards the end, I really did connect with it emotionally. And a lot of people seem to really love our guest star, our new president of Earth.
I'll
Nicole
take it.
says, when Stacey Abrams appeared, I wept like a happy baby. I think that was probably an important moment for a lot of people. What did you feel when that happened? Even though you knew it was coming, and so did I.
Yeah, I mean, but I loved it. It was also just like seeing that lineup of just like I can't even imagine what it would be like to see like three incredibly talented and like Black women in charge and running like shit on this like as their characters, right?
Yep.
But then also like on the show itself and like how
Yeah.
impactful that has to be for folks. I mean, I got emotional seeing like just like literally everyone in charge was women, which was just like this is badass. Like I'm ready for this planet Earth. Like give me
Yeah.
President Stacey Abrams. Like I'm here for it. Also just knowing like how impactful the show is for her, like as just like
Yeah.
a fan, I was
Yeah.
like that has to be so much fun. And I loved like every minute of it. And apparently she did not want to be spoiled to what happened to the season because she wanted to watch it like a true fan does. And so they told her nothing of what happened. So she had to sort of like deliver the performance without knowing any spoilers of the season.
That woman just does everything right. Just does everything right.
Yeah.
Clyde, welcome. It's Clyde. Clyde made it.
Wow.
All right, give us your hot freak on the disco finale, Clyde.
So life, and I didn't plan properly. So I assumed that, this will be like a 48-minute episode. And so I started it like at the buzzer and was like, oh, dang, I'm going to be like 10 minutes late.
Super long episode.
And I was like, and I thought about it. I said, you know what? Maybe I'll just watch up until we start the pod, and I just won't watch the last few minutes and come back and watch it after the pod. And
it would have been a disgrace.
Well, here's the thing.
If you had been spoiled.
I've done that one time before, and it was, I think, a season or two ago. And you all were talking about, did you see what happened at the last like 5 seconds? And I was like, damn it. No. I have no idea what they're talking about. And then so I was watching, and I was like, I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna listen to the pod, and I'm gonna finish this episode. And the minute you start, Mariah, you started going, and I didn't want to spoil. I had to go hit mute and focus. Because I was like, here it comes. There's something big going to happen. And I almost lost my mind when I saw Stacey Abrams pop out. I wanted to like pound my hand. And like, it was amazing. I did not expect that. So I got to feel all that.
Yeah.
You're lucky we both got spoiled on that.
Hey, I mean, I had no idea. It's been crazy. And then so I agree with both of you. One, this was a great finale. It pulled in so many of the right places, and yeah, I teared up a couple times. And Mike, like you said, when Sonequa Martin Green, when Burnham sees him in the transporter, kind of that form come to life. Look, this wasn't rocket science. I think we all kind of sort of expected it, but she made me feel it, even though I'm like, I know it's happening. I still felt it. So kudos to her. I thought that was amazing. And then for whatever reason, when I saw Tilly show back up on Discovery, that just got me. Like I was like, man, it was like family and home. This was an amazing episode. Now, if I have to nitpick, it's not just Discovery. I've seen this in a few definitely sci-fi stuff. The world is ending. The countdown has started. You have 60 seconds and everything is going to collapse. And so when I ask you a question, you give me the full encyclopedia definition of what's happening and you explain it to me in full detail. That drives me nuts. Like absolutely nuts. You're like, well, let me explain to you the physics behind what we're thinking in this plan. And we've got a couple options. And I'm like,
let me throw in 4 or 5 quips in there too to make it longer.
I'm like, are you serious? Like that? Not the time.
I will say though, I did get excited when they dropped the idea that it would take them decades to get back. I was like, ooh, that could
Voyager
be
shot.
a little Voyager.
Yeah, but I was also like, oh, you're gonna reset again. Like you're gonna be this ship that's stuck away, decades away from Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I think so. My biggest nitpick of this episode is when they're having their final like moment with the 10C and explaining that they need them to turn the DMA off, because you went from only being able to communicate in math form to then giant metaphorical speeches.
Prose, like straight up prose. Book had a full on speech.
Well, and here's the thing. I would have bought it if Book's forehead did the thing and then he's saying it, because to me, he's then communicating with it on a different like level. Like the minute that President Tahana was like, I'm gonna like Vulcan mind meld with these creatures, I was like, this is where like I feel like we can get past this whole like we have to communicate in math and we have this translator and Saru's using those fancy keyboards that you wrap your hands around that are supposed to be better for your wrists or whatever. And like I just needed a jump of like, that's where I do need the explainer. I know y'all just complained about the explainers of like when it's the end of the world, but I felt like we went from like math equations to Shakespeare, and like we didn't have anything in the middle.
Well, Mariah, that would have been perfect if after everything they were having this like, you know, when they started pulling things away, if they started explaining or someone said, hey, how'd you guys figure this out? Like there's a moment where it would have made sense. Yeah. It was just like in the middle of, you know, we've got 60 seconds before we do this. And I was just like, come on, man, you're killing me.
That didn't bother me as much because the whole time I'm just like, God, I hope we can figure out a way to just communicate with these aliens. And I don't care if I get an explanation or not. Come on, just make this easier, because it's a hard watch, you know, trying to figure out the communications. Like we did that last week. That wasn't very compelling. Right. So let's just talk to him, you know, but it was like I live in North Austin. Like people in South Austin, like kind of speak a different language and I don't understand what they're saying. So it's like Book was talking like somehow they're picking up on even like colloquialisms and stuff. So whatever, right? Hand wave.
Yeah. And I mean, I can look past a lot of stuff because it's like sci-fi magic, whatever, future magic, all of that kind of stuff. But I felt like the answer was like there. You have people who have some sort of like telepathic ability on the ship. And especially as soon as Book comes back, I just was like, I don't even need Book to be saying it. I just want him to be, when he said, can I talk to them? I fully expected him to go like full empath mode. And that's how he was going to talk to them, not through the translator. And to me, I felt like that would have been like a way more, I don't know.
It would have been a redemptive moment as well for Book.
Yes, that he now has this ability to communicate them on like a much more nuanced level, right? Mm-hmm. Like if he was able to say all those things so that we're experiencing it in real time, but we're seeing that it's being communicated like via his telepathy or whatever,
right?
Or his empathy telepathy.
Did you guys want General, was it Odoye? Did you want her to die?
No.
To sacrifice herself?
No, that wasn't necessary. I like where it ended up. You know, the trope of like a character like that dying is whatever. Let's erase that trope. Let's get around it and let's like rehabilitate the character a little bit. And because I love that they pulled her back in to talk about defensive
Mhm.
strategy. It's like, oh, she's an expert in this. We need her. I think we can trust her. Okay, great.
Yeah, I have to agree because I think the easy thing in our culture today is to lean into this cancel culture, right? You make a mistake and now we banish you to your quarters for the duration of the fight, even though you have something that could be really valuable. And I thought it came up in the perfect moment when we really all thought that Detmer was about to be gone. And so
Almost
he
like
thought-
no.
Oh well, Shakun was like, absolutely not.
Yeah. And so she volunteered herself up, and then and it wasn't at the cost of her life. I actually really like that. I think it has changed her, probably permanently, and how she thinks about things. And so I liked it. I thought I liked this episode. I thought it was a good season finale.
Yeah, I'm glad. I agree that I feel like the character arc was more complete by having her volunteer to do that, but I'm glad that they were able to actually like beam her out, and it wasn't like, oh, if you have a mistake, you have to sacrifice yourself completely, right? Like you can learn from a mistake, you can come back to it. We'll have a whole other conversation about cancel culture, Clyde, because cancel culture doesn't actually exist for most people, specifically people in privileged positions. But
yeah.
I was I think Joe Rogan still got paid $200 million to have a podcast. So
I think you're just using a shorthand, right, Clyde?
Well, no, I think I completely agree. For people in power, I think culturally, what has happened is it has become this thing that we do to people in our
call out culture, right?
Well, I think in our sphere we do it. Someone makes a mistake, and you're like, all right, I'm not friends. Like I'm done with them. And so it's like it's this thing that we've adopted that doesn't actually really exist, but because we've adopted it, it kind of exists for the people around us. And anyway, but I kind of sort of wish they had been able to save Tarka.
Really?
I am fully satisfied with his death because he chose it.
Well, we don't know if he died, right? We don't know.
Oh, he's definitely dead. My issue is I kind of feel like death was a little too easy. I felt like he died, but he didn't really face what he had done. Right? That was my only thing.
He did pull up his like transporter thing, so they have left it slightly ambiguous, right? But I feel like that character is gone, and I do feel like he had opportunity to redeem himself and never took it. And I think he then was like, I don't know if he even wanted to be redeemed. I think he's like, I'm done being here.
Yeah,
that was it. That was it. Yeah, I'm out. I think Marge has a good point here in the chat that I just lost. There it is. Talking about, how do you pronounce the general's name? Ndoye. Ndoye is a satisfying, complicated character, but Ndoye could have been an excellent Tarka. Like in the place of Tarka, having Ndoye be Tarka, that would have been interesting. Like in that role, like more actively doing this, because she does come from such a militaristic background. If they would have given her the science knowledge, that might have been a little more interesting and more of a threat as well. What do you guys think about that? Like subbing Ndoye for Tarka.
I mean, I think her character then would, to me, have more compelling motivation, right? Because you have a whole planet at stake and all these things. But I would need to know what sort of like fully pushed her to not trust in diplomacy, right? Like, I think as someone who does, like, if she's coming from a military background, like, you shouldn't want to have your soldiers go to war. You should hopefully be working to not have to do that, right? And so I would hope that, I don't know, it would complicate things. I don't think you could do like a fully equivalent swap out.
Right.
Yeah, I did love the fact that she confessed. Like it wasn't this cloak and dagger thing. She said, I did it.
Yeah.
I actually love that, and I thought it worked for the storyline. Right, you didn't have a whole lot of time.
She proved to be an interesting, honorable character in the end, which and a complicated one. Which, going forward, if we see her again, I'm going to be excited and interested to see what's up with her. So that's great.
Yeah, agreed.
We got a few more hot freaks on this episode. Kern says the finale was visually stunning. I wish, though, the lead up to the finale had been better written. Yeah, I agree. Like the last few episodes kind of just felt like, not a lot of momentum for me.
I got another quick hot freak for you. We got to see Vance's family.
We've seen them once before.
Have we?
A similar
Yeah.
shot of them just like walking through a
The
frame
beginning of the
altogether.
season, I
Yes.
think.
Kind of like who? Like, so squeeze like who? Okay, can you slow down just a second? Get a portrait of you guys? Can you?
Yeah, I really liked the Admiral and Tilly together as like a little scene partnership.
The galactic drinking buddies. Yeah, that was cool.
I thought it was cool, and seeing everyone beam off, I could like, you're like, Tilly's sticking around. She's like, I'm here until the bitter end, because I think she also, probably more so than anyone else, knows that if you're sending the crew of the Discovery out, that they're going to deliver, right? Like she's never not seen them deliver.
Yeah.
So while it was definitely like a full sacrifice, she was probably like, okay, if I know anything about these people, they're going to make something happen.
Do you think she stays off the ship? Do we know anything about Mary Wiseman and her commitment to the role?
I'm not sure. They're still writing the next season, so I think it depends. I know she's currently doing a play, so I don't know if that's going to affect her schedule moving forward. But she did have an interesting point on the Ready Room interview that she did, kind of talking about seeing Tilly in her sort of like academy blacks, like her different uniform. She said it was like a nice way to see the character kind of have like an actual full change. And while she knows like her family is everyone on Discovery, and we saw that in that sort of like reunion moment, she's really been able to strike out and finally have her own sort of piece of the pie, right? That she can stake her claim on. And she's the one teaching this next generation at the academy. So,
and they're really falling in line too. Her students, they were very heroic in this episode, and it's like she's building a new family.
Yeah. And I kind of like, now that we are getting into, like our 5th season of the show, sometimes I enjoy if we can have like split plot points that aren't all just on the ship. It's nice to check back in with like the home base. And I think we have interesting characters at Starfleet Academy and at the Starfleet base. And so if Tilly's sort of within that grouping, that's exciting to me. I obviously miss her being on the ship, but I think they've done a good job of trying to work with this larger ensemble, I think, more creatively. And I think I have high hopes for next season.
Yeah, well, if it means we're going to see more world building, with some Tilly and her cadets over here and just go out in space, like I'm all for it.
I definitely think that what we're seeing in this is, to me, this is a flagship property that, if handled just right, is going to spawn some other properties. And we're already starting to see that a bit. And I wonder if we're going to...
There's like 13 shows.
Yes, but I'm saying...
they've already hinted at like an Academy show or something, right? Like a Starfleet Academy show?
And that's what I'm saying. You can see that there's so much content where it's going to feel a little bit like Marvel, where you've just got a number of these things. I think what feels different to me about when I see Tilly separate is that the minute that Pike showed up, we knew what was happening. This was the introduction of someone who was going to get a spinoff, right? And I think that you could almost say that with the reintroduction of Michelle Yeoh. Like, there are these things that we've like, oh, that's part of the plan. This feels a little bit more organic, and a bit of growth as we're getting these characters, and you're going, wow, there's something there. Let's develop something here.
That's the mark of a satisfying long-term character arc. And that's what we got from Tilly, like from season 1 till now.
For sure. I was a little disappointed we didn't get any we didn't have Gray kind of come back for any, even just like the montage scene at the end of like,
that's true.
Oh, good job, Adira. You saved the galaxy again, like something along those lines.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was like, I really liked the moment between Tilly and Adira, though, and sort of that, like, oh, you were my friend who sort of taught me how to friend, right? And like, look at me go.
Marge reminds us of one of my favorite bits of this episode, the hollow cat door.
That was funny.
That was funny. I really thought that when he was messing with Grudge's collar, I was thinking we're about to get the Grudge reveal. And I was thinking,
Oh,
oh man, he's going to hit a homing button and Grudge is going to turn into like a transformer or something. And it's going to be super weird. I was like, something's going to happen. We're going to finally figure out. It's like, nope, just a hollow
little-
cat door.
little kitty door. Nicole says, I really wanted to see them crawling through the cat door. Yeah, how'd they get out of there? Like,
I don't know.
that would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been funny. I enjoyed Jet Reno interacting with Book a lot. I think, like you said earlier, Mike, like David Ajala just has I think David Ajala would have chemistry with paint drying on the wall. Like
Mhm.
I would be totally fine watching that. And so the two of them together were really fun to watch. And then I thought it was such a nice little, more emotional scene from Jet Reno, not just like a bit of a
Yep.
joking manner when she tells Burnham, like that man loves you and says do whatever it takes. So I thought that was like there was a nice little emotional arc for Jet's character this season, even though it wasn't like a huge one. I felt like it was very satisfying.
There really was. And her, continuing on the point of if you lose your loved ones, you have to let them go if you want to move on in this world. And Tarka's like, we can go to this alternate reality. Your family's there. It's like, no, it's not them. And
It
it's
is
not going
kind
to be the
of
same.
funny to back think about it though, because technically we already talked a little bit about this when we brought Hugh back, right? Like, is this Hugh truly the original Hugh?
He's a mushroom boy.
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
made of mushrooms.
It made me want to go back and rewatch some of that whole sequence to like kind of remember where we got to with that.
I do remember they did a good job of selling it as this is a new construct of Hugh. Like he is a different person with all of Hugh's memories.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a new person.
Mm-hmm.
So that works for me. I don't care, whatever keeps him on the ship. I love him.
No, 100%. But yeah, I was just like, oh, this is interesting that we're kind of talking about that again.
John Parker brings up a good episode. Well, first he's like, so what's the arc for next season? It's great coming back. And now we have 0 ships with a working spore drive after having 2 at the start of the season. So yeah, the spore drive blew up. That was kind of a cool moment. Like we actually lost the spore drive. That's what makes the Discovery special.
But they did say that they can fix it, but they need it to be in space dock. Yeah. And that was going to be the thing, is it was going to take them decades to get back, but now they're back. So we'll have one. So the beginning of season 5, we'll at least have one.
Yeah. But we did get rid of Tarka, who built the other one.
So, and that's the interesting thing is a lot of times with sci-fi shows, the kind of the gag is there's this one thing that if you could just get more of this, life gets easier for you and everybody associated with you. But throughout all the seasons, we're just gonna not let you have this one thing you need, right? There's some power source or something that you need that you can't have. And I assume that is going to be the spore drive. We will always really only have one spore drive as we begin and in these seasons.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing was that makes it unique, right? Is the only people who can pilot it at this point is still Stamets and Book. And especially now that Book's whole planet was destroyed and there's way less of
Quajonians.
Yeah, of people from Quajon. He that's a much more limited supply of people who can pilot. Although if I was someone who was from Quajon, I would be like joining Starfleet and asking for, I don't know what the equivalent of money is at this point in that universe, to be like, hey, I'm the only kind of people who can pilot this.
Yeah, that's that. You need more. You need me more than I need you. Yeah. So let's just keep that in the forefront of your mind as we go forward.
Yeah, what would be the currency in Starfleet now or in the Federation? I know it's always been like knowledge and reputation, right? But
yeah, I guess they did use some Latinum.
I'd want that double size like quarters. You know, maybe
with that like, wood paneling like Bookship had. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want all the cushy, like the best shifts, right? Don't have me, I'm not working,
You're not gonna be a lower deck.
No,
mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I don't even want to see Boimler. Like, I don't want to see that. No.
Guys, we got a whole other episode of Star Trek to talk about. You want to move into Picard?
No.
Well, before
did
we
you get
move
to
into
watch it?
Picard,
Did.
Okay, good.
before we
Go ahead,
move
Maya.
into Picard, I wanted to see if anyone has any fun theories or thoughts of what you would want to see in season 5.
Oh man. What about you, Clyde?
Someone put in the chat earlier, and I thought it was a great idea. They said in season 5, Zora gets a corporeal body. Yeah, Mark said it at 7:27 Pacific time. I think that could be really interesting. I think what happens with Zora, what we do with Zora, I could see that being much more of kind of a storyline. We still haven't seen the Klingons in a minute, so I'm expecting that maybe a bit of a return of the Klingons. Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I feel like in every season we get a little bit of a relationship development.
Oh, guys, we didn't even talk about Saru and President.
You mean Mr. Pimpin?
They held hands, y'all. That is a big, big move for both of those characters.
It's like
I
third
mean,
base for a Vulcan. So that's good.
By the time we get to season 5 opening, there's gonna be a half Kelpie and half Vulcan baby.
Oh, imagine a little Kelpian baby with pointy ears. Oh, bring it.
No, I think so. It'll be interesting to see what relationship the writers choose to focus on for season 5. I'm curious.
I just want to see more of these wonderful alien designs the show keeps bringing us, whether it be old or species we've seen before or new species. It's the practical designs are amazing. So that means more Klingons, more Ferengi, more Tellarites, more Andorians, whatever. Bring it. That's what I want to see, more of a cosmic vibe going on.
Yeah. I have high hopes for some more exploration, potentially Discovery going out on some kind of longer mission at some point. Perhaps the ability to build out more spore drives is a motivating factor to go out and find more people who can pilot them or some other ways to pilot them. Because they now have, I mean, they can't stop talking about the AR wall, right? And how it's like changed the game for what they can shoot. They don't have to think about budget constraints as much. And so to me, as a fan, that means I want to see you on way more alien worlds, because even the 10C planet we got was like really cool to see. So, yeah, I'm hoping just more alien planets, because they sort of left it in that space at the end where, Burnham and President Abrams, they didn't actually give her a name, so no. It's just the president, but I'm going to call her President Abrams.
President Abrams, yeah.
But President Abrams, you know, they were talking about now that Earth is back in, that there's so much more to explore, right? Like even just going out and seeing the 10C reminded Burnham that there's so much more that needs to happen, and so much more first contact that needs to happen. So I'm hoping that's the planted seed of ideals for the next season.
And Glenn Paris noted, and Mike, I'm curious if you caught this. Did you hear them refer to the ship the Nog?
Yeah, they've done that before.
Yeah.
We've gotten a reference to the Nog before. The first time they said, "Oh, there's the Nog, the Eisenberg class ship," which is a nod, obviously, to Aaron Eisenberg, who played Nog on DS9. So
yeah,
they also had more DS9 love.
Yeah. They also had the Mitchell for Kenneth Mitchell. And
that's
then
right.
There was also a Yelkin that was mentioned in the great exodus off of Earth. So I thought it was nice. We got to kind of hear some.
That's such a cool way to honor these people, just naming ships after them in this wonderful universe. All right, Picard.
Oof.
Hot breaks on Picard, episode 3, Assimilation, season 2, episode 3. Mariah, you're the Picard hater, so you go first.
This was so far my least favorite episode out of the 3.
Hey, on brand.
On brand. I think it might have been a bit of a coming off of, I just really enjoyed Discovery so much, and like the emotional, the way that we got to linger on some emotion in that made me feel like everything felt so rushed in this other episode. Like we just are just gonna have Rafi have one wailing moment and one anger outburst about losing Elnor, and like it just felt, I don't know. I had a hard time keeping up with some of the world rules in this one, which I kind of understood because we were in like the evil version of things, and so I let some of it go. I still don't 100% understand why we had to plug into the Borg to fix the ship when the Borg didn't have all of the ship's anyway. There was just
cool.
there's a lot of logic things that I had trouble getting over. But I loved the stuff that was happening on in Los Angeles. Like I liked seeing our sort of core three going out and trying to start getting into some trouble. I found a lot of that to be very charming. I really love Seven and Rafi together. I think that they have great scene chemistry. And yeah, so it just feels, and I saw something in a review today that one of the writers has said that Picard is best when binged. And so I'm like, but if that's what's going to make this show the best, then why didn't you release it that way? Because to me,
I can see that because we got the screeners of the first 3 and I just binged right through them and I was really happy. So, Clyde, what do you think? Hot Freak Picard season 2, episode 3.
So I got a few thoughts. So one, I want to first agree with what Mariah just said. I think when I've tried to watch this show episode by episode, there's been some challenges, and partly because of when it was released. And Mariah, to your point, the fact that I'm getting Discovery and Picard at the same time is making it difficult. Because it's like one is taking me to a place that is culminating at the end of a season, and so I'm really invested in where are we going and how are we going to resolve this. And one is starting, and as we know, like the start of a season, especially a reboot, there's a lot to get into. So I think that has been tricky. I think for me, I really wish they would have released this next week.
mm-hmm.
After Discovery concluded. I think that might have been a better experience. And then, Mike, to your point, we did get the screener, so I had a chance to watch the first 3 all at once, and that was a better experience for me. Like I can see binging this and going, okay, because when I went back and had to watch them one by one, it was a bit of like, okay, like so when I look at this episode just as this episode, I'm kind of going, okay, so this is Casino Royale. This is every Star Trek series that does hey, we landed on Earth in the past. And this is the whole premise of, what was it? The Star Trek movie with the
whales.
Not the whales. No, I'm not even talking about that one. I'm talking about the
First
one
Contact?
where First Contact.
Yeah.
Like this is basically like the whole premise of that. And I'm just going, okay, I've kind of sort of seen this before. And don't get me wrong, Reyes is incredibly charming, and you've got the kid and the doctor, and you've got Ice and a whole, that's a fascinating storyline for me. It just, I was kind of like, all right, well, what am I doing if I'm just focused on this episode? Right? You've started me in a place and you drop me off in a place where I'm kind of like, just get me to the next episode. That's my biggest kind of criticism.
It felt like this is half of an episode in a weird way. Like yes. I didn't, like, I mean, that's what's hard, right? Is like, to me, a whole season has to have a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And a lot of times in the middle, you can kind of have a bit of a dip, but each episode should also have a beginning, middle, and an end. And this did not feel like it was just a whole lot of beginning. There is not a whole lot of middle and end. Like we were just like,
it was
moving us into a new, and
it was
every
largely
episode is set like that.
It was largely very much structurally like, okay, we're parked. Now what do we do? But I mean, I haven't gone for my hot freak. You guys have a very like clear-eyed perception of this show so far. I think not me. I love it. This is some Star Trek, y'all. This show is really bringing those super fun First Contact meets Voyage Home vibes that I love, without sacrificing stuff like real dramatic stakes or really compelling character progression or really good acting. Like we got tons of good shit in this episode. Um, Things start out with a deadly shootout against like some space Nazi bitches. Then we move to a damn entertaining space battle. Then the Borg Queen takes over the ship in like a super dramatic fashion while like we're racing to slingshot around the sun to travel back in time. And damn, that's how you spell fun for me. Like I was just gripped. And the unsteady alliance with like the creepier than ever Borg Queen is like super intriguing.
Yeah.
Like there's some like genuine horror movie shit going on here with the Borg Queen. Like all the goofy shit on Earth is just like, to me, it just felt like just pitch perfect Voyage Home slash Future's End from Voyager. Like just dramedy goodness. Like I'm here for it. Please, somebody liquefy this show, inject it into my jugular with some Borg tubules because it is my happy sauce and I am loving it. R.I.P. Elnor. P.S. was never really a fan.
Oh,
Really, I'm not happy with the no Elnor because I felt like you need some brawn, right? And now you don't have it.
I also feel like we're gonna miss.
Got Rafi and 7, bro. So,
Yeah, they're definitely my brawn is Rafi and
Yeah.
7 more than anything. But I felt like Elnor brought a bit more humor that I enjoy. I love a good fish out of water, like sensibility, and Elnor is the ultimate fish out of water.
I really think, and it feels like the show has done itself a service. They left. Feels like they're weeding out the not so strong actors and giving us because the performers who are left at the core of this show, each and every one of them has their own specific charms. Like they're all kind of stars, and it just works.
Well,
I don't. The people we left out, not so much.
To that point, Mike, I think the two things that are jumping out at me is one, Allison Pill has been nothing short of amazing.
Hell yeah.
But also, the show carries the name Picard, right? But really,
who so far has been the least important character of this entire series?
What I'm saying, like this has been much more of an ensemble, and I think
I
that's
did notice he did a lot of
gravitated.
sitting down in this episode. A lot of sitting down for old John Luke.
Well, and whereas if you think about season 1, he's in every scene, right? And for the most part, he's either in every scene or they're doing something that's regarding something that he's doing. And now you're seeing people pair up or, try and pair up. You've got Rafi and 7, you've got Rios trying to get with them, but they're separate. And we're watching these storylines unfold. And it's really almost ready to be labeled Star Trek something else than Picard, because you could really pull him out of the show and the show would continue to go on.
But the show is still largely about Picard. Like there is something
still the instigator,
in his,
right?
There's something in his past that is instigated this whole thing. We saw Q for a moment pop up to remind us this is all about you, Jean-Luc, and this is all about your fear. And also, even though like I just joked that Picard just did a lot of sitting around in this episode, I still found his determination to get this shit done and fixed inspiring, like the Picard of old. We didn't get a lot of that in Picard season 1, so that was a good thing for me. What do you think, Clyde? Are you liking this Picard better than Picard season 1? Because this seems like the guy who's like, let's get shit done.
I mean, yes. Yes, I am liking it better. I mean, I think, was it Rafi who called him out and said, basically, this is your fault. We are here. Elnor's dead because you keep pissing around with Q. I agree 100%. And I also feel like at any moment, he has the ability to yell, Q, you win. And he hasn't.
Not necessarily. Q
so?
gave him a choice in the last episode. It was either you live out as the alternative version of yourself, or you deal with this shit. So he wasn't going to live out as the evil General Picard. But I want to say this was directed by Leah Thompson.
Fun.
I saw that and I was like,
did a sweet job. I kind of want all my sci-fi TV now directed by Leah Thompson and Bryce Dallas Howard, because they're just killing it. Bryce Dallas doing the best episodes of Boba Fett and Mando, and Leah Thompson doing this great episode of Picard. I think she directs some more coming up too.
I think she did the last 2 episodes, right?
Yep.
It's fascinating because you think about somebody like Leah Thompson and you go, really? Like that? This is a sci-fi person, but when you really think about it, you go back. Well, she's somewhat of a pioneer in the sci-fi genre.
I was like, Back to the Future.
I know. Here's the thing: she's done a lot more than Back to the Future.
And even in Back to the Future, it was more of a comedic role than like sci-fi. Yeah.
But I think Back to the Future gets a bad rap, I feel like, a lot of times in terms of just in movie lore. But so much of our understanding of time travel can be traced back to the Future. It is almost, it's the quintessential, you're not supposed to meet your alternate self when you travel back in time, right? Like there's the rules that most of us think about when we think about time travel from a sci-fi standpoint probably resonate somehow with Back to the Future. And everyone who's thought, like, anytime you hear a joke about something as simple as going back in time, but trying to remember who won sports trivia or things like that, that's always kind of a reference to Back to the Future. And so I think, it makes sense that Leah Thompson would do this. And I think she did a hell of a job.
Yeah, she did good. I also want to mention, I think since we're in 2024, we're in the timeline of the DS9 2-parter Past Tense. And a lot of that show was just about income disparity and the government sliding into totalitarianism. And we definitely get scenes and references to that happening in this episode. Especially when La Migra shows up at the end to arrest Rios. I really like the doctor character. I think she and Rios have a good vibe. I want to see more of her.
I really enjoyed the line when Rafi and Seven are just like, oh, it's surprising it took them this long to fall into total collapse. And I was like, it's happening. It's very much happening. I see it. I was like, y'all don't have to tell us, we see it.
How are you guys feeling about this Borg Queen, man? I think like I said, when the ship went nuts and the Borg Queen is crawling on the ground, the Borg Queen torso towards Jurati, that was some really dark, suspenseful horror shit. And even when you realize she's not going to hurt Jurati, it's still creepy because she has this knowing, subversive grin on her face the entire time, where she's up to something, but you also feel like she knows a lot more than she's letting on, and it's really working for me. So Annie Wershing, good job.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the Borg Queen performance, and I love when we can get some horror thrown into any kind of sci-fi stuff. I think it's obviously been successful for many franchises. Aliens, all of those I think are great combinations of sci-fi and horror. And so I hope we get to lean into it, because they keep talking about how Picard is this is their true Star Trek drama, right? Like this is their dark adult drama show. So I'm like, let's do it up, y'all. Give it to me.
But it's also a goofy fun time. Like it's a lot of stuff, man. It's that, like, I don't know, they're marketing it as a prestige show. And like I said last week, there's lots of like dark ideas and themes going on, but the vibe of the show is just fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could keep a little bit of the horror out of my sci-fi. I'm okay with that. But this is an interesting twist, right? I think we really do benefit from having a big bad week to week. And Q is not going to be the big bad week from week. He's the overarching plot device in this season. And now we've got this Borg Queen who is largely separated from the Hive, who isn't quite as all-powerful as the Borg usually is. It's an interesting way to bring in the Borg that still has this gravitas, this power, this threatening, and this fear, without having a villain so unbeatable that you're just like, okay, we'll throw everything at it until you defeat it, and wake me up when you do. Like, it's actually a really interesting device. Because I mean, I think that every time we had one of those episodes and TNG, it was kind of like, all right, well, this is going to be an episode where lots of people are going to die that we don't know of. Most of the people that we know aren't going to die, but they're going to throw all these resources at trying to defeat the Borg, and eventually they'll get it, right? Or in Voyager, it's like, all right, it's going to be really, really hard, but ultimately they're going to do it because the Borg is so incredible. This is a different type of experience with the Borg. It's much more nuanced,
personal,
and personal. Great word, Mike. Great word. It's much more personal.
I want to mention real quick what John Parker is saying. How is the Queen able to get tentacles to pull herself up but not plug into the ship again? And people are like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It kind of alludes to what you guys were saying earlier. Like, there's lots of logic holes happening in the show, but for every logical or example of a logic hole, there is something wonderful, like Girardi saying, computer, pull up the file shit I stole from the Borg Queen. Like, that just makes this so entertaining and fun. So
I mean, and I think I noticed towards the end when they have her strung up, she's got like her wrists are seemingly in some sort of like thing to hold her back. But to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time because, like what you said, Clyde, it's like typically the Borg. It's like if you have a Borg on your ship, you are fucked in no other sense of the word, right? Like if they are plugged. But why does that matter? She can plug into
3 shots and you're done, right? So you better make those 3 shots before they recalculate the shields count, right?
Yes.
And after those, you just better run.
And they did establish in this episode that they were able to set up a firewall between her and the major like sections of the ship, and they can actually turn her off.
Then I needed that much more explained because I like it all. I feel like sometimes unless you are like showing it to me, these like throwaway lines for things that feel so big, especially when it is something like the Borg, sometimes bothers me because I'm like, I need something. I need to see like you restraining her, take the plugs out. I don't know, put her in a glass box. Yeah, like something to deal with this, right?
I am totally willing to admit that just the vibe of the show is helping me overlook all these logicals. So I'm not very rational when it comes to Picard right now because it is just surprising me with how fun it is. And Glenn Paris is speaking what we're all thinking. I can't believe how sexy the Borg Queen is. Right, right, guys, right? Just me, okay.
It's not my cup of tea, but I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, to each their own.
Hey, there's a good question here from Carolyn K3. So Q says it is Picard's fear that was the problem. He does mention that again in this episode. Does that mean it was his fear of the Borg that led him to self-destruct and ripple destruction of all the ships and the Borg Queen?
Like from the first episode? Does that mean it was this fear of the Borg that led to the self-destruct and the ripple destruction of all the ships in the Borg Queen?
Right.
I don't think that incident.
It's something deeper, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Or maybe it's something back to when he was Locutus. I feel like they keep bringing up Locutus a lot, and somehow that's going to have to come back around in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Come on, Mariah. Stay with us.
I'm theorizing. I've been working so much this week, y'all. My theorizing brain is shot. I mean, the thing is like potentially if that Borg ship coming through is in some way, shape, or form from a different timeline, and somehow that just like but it wasn't his fear. It was really Seven who was like, we have to not let the Borg on the ship. Picard was willing to talk, right? And we do know eventually the Borg do join the Federation at some point because we see it in the future in Lower Decks, and that is
that could have been a kid doing cosplay. We don't know.
I mean, why would you do cosplay at school?
It's the future, man. Shit's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's so many possibilities. I feel like I need at least one more episode of Borg nonsensory coming out of the Queen for me to understand what's going on.
Someone earlier in the chat, I'm trying to find it. Sorry if I don't find it, but they did mention that, well, we got the Borg Queen in Girardi's head, Girardi in the Borg Queen's head. They're swapping minds. It seems like it's my hand, your hand. There's a theory that the Borg Queen. Oh, here it is. Kern. It's making me think even more that the Borg Queen in episode 1 was Girardi with the mask. That would be wild.
Ooh,
That would be wild.
that would be wild.
Mhm.
Carolyn K3 says, "Is the Doctor Rios's ancestor?"
Oh no.
I hope not,
That's
because they seem to have a
Feeling
lot of
little
chemistry.
romantic. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
Well,
of romantic chemistry there.
I mean, here's the interesting thing about that. Leah
Dr. Teresa.
Thompson. Well, Leah Thompson directed this episode, and in Back to the Future,
The whole
she had
thing.
a lot of chemistry with her
Her
and
son.
her son, right? So,
Nice connection. Nice connection.
which back in 1987 or whenever it came out was a lot easier to swallow than it would be today. I just think I think that would be an interesting way of like this. Will they? Won't they? They can't because
yeah.
she's his ancestor.
Hey, man, be your own great grandfather. It's all good.
I mean, I guess it's so far in the past.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be like, how much ancestry is there left? Not that I'm trying to justify this plot
No,
line, but
please.
it's like, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah, no.
Oh man, watching Rios eat the peanut butter and be like, real peanut butter made me order a peanut butter smoothie. So that was awesome. Okay, before we go, one last thing. Do you guys have any theories who the Watcher is? And if your theory is Guinan, then okay. But
I've seen a lot of Guinan
Yeah.
online. People are like, what if Guinan is actually Whoopi on The View and it's like The View is happening and they see her on screen? And I was like, that's not going to happen, but like, nice try. If they were maybe the same, if this was an NBC sci-fi movie, 100%, 100%.
Yes.
They love
Sci-Fi
doing that.
Channel movie? Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
Sharknado, full of cameos of that caliber. But I don't think that's going to happen here.
And then Whoopi would look at the camera and say, "You in danger, girl."
I feel like
Not for nothing, I gotta say, you know, we talk about that. I was somewhere. I was at my mother's house, and you know, you walk to your room, you turn on the TV, you turn it on. Ghost was on, and
Perfect.
I was like, Whoopi, and I will admit, I got sucked into it for a little bit. They were
It's an
doing a whole
excellent movie.
Patrick Swayze like marathon, and
Perfect.
you know, watch some Roadhouse too. It was great.
Did they play Tu Wong Fu? That's
I don't know. By
It's a
the
fun
you
one.
know, you do some Ghost and some Roadhouse. It's time to go to sleep. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
enough. I
It's
don't
a
know what
long
came on
afternoon.
after that.
I've seen some people talking about Soji. I do think that is a potential, that it's either an ancestor or some version of Soji.
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
like Guinan. I hadn't thought about that. I'm late to that party, but I like the idea of Guinan because I want Guinan to be back. Because to be honest with you, this Whoopi Goldberg is going to be in Picard season 2, and that nonsensical bar scene. You better give me some more of that, or that. As far as I'm concerned, that doesn't count.
Or
Nonsense.
I wonder if it's going to be the guy who
like 2 seconds.
was watching The Gate for Michelle Yeoh.
The guy who's watching The Gate. Oh, yeah.
Mm,
That would be interesting. That would be a good crossover.
would be a good crossover. So,
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Or
Hmm.
I would love to see the Cisco. I would there's some DS9 vibes going on in this show. Not only are we in the timeline where that great DS9 episode took place, but we also had mentions of Gul Dukat and General Martok, who are big
Mhm.
DS9 characters. We know the Reckoning tablet from DS9 is coming. We got to call out to Cisco. I don't know. What if they're
mean-
surprising us and we get Avery Brooks back? That'd be
That would be quite the secret that they have kept under lock and key.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, that seems like a hard one to not
Mhm.
I mean,
for us not to find out about.
you can do a lot of this stuff on a lot, you know.
I think the Kako's got it.
Oh.
Laris. She is shown with weird white eyes in the trailer. I didn't see that. Yeah.
Interesting.
We're told Laris is not around, but maybe it is Laris. Yeah. Picard and Laris all the way for me.
I think we're gonna see some Picard and Laris, but I don't know that I think she's the Watcher. I
Yeah.
don't think that.
See, Pud's 38 is where I'm at. What if it's the Watcher is Cisco in his ascended form? Yeah, he's a prophet now, so that'd be cool.
I'm like going to Avery Brooks IMDb. What was
I
he working
thinking
on?
the same thing.
I mean, there's nothing there since 2006. So
The man is a university professor. He's busy. All right. All right.
I mean, if
think-
Stacey Abrams can show
Yeah,
up for
yeah.
a Trek episode,
for sure. Okay.
Anyway,
I think that's all we got, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week to talk about more Picard. Also, we got a new James Kirk, and I think that's cool coming for Strange New World. So maybe we'll talk about that next time too.
very
Mariah,
exciting.
tell people things.
Yes. So you can visit us at StarTrekPod.co, where you can subscribe to all of the audio and video versions of this podcast. You can also find links to our Patreon there. We just released some Patreon exclusive episodes talking about comic books. So if you want to talk about some of the Star Trek comic books, you can visit us on our Patreon site and get involved with that. And yeah, if you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell so you also know when we go live on Thursday nights. Clyde, how else can people talk to us on the internet?
Well, you can always hang out with us at Star Trek Pod on Twitter and on Insta. So thank you, Karen. And yeah, come hang out with us.
Do it. What you got
everywhere.
there, Mike?
It's a mini scare glow from Masters of the Universe.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It glows in the dark. Scare glow.
Ooh, fancy.
All right. What else? We already did all the things. All right.
We did.
Live long and prosper.